Do you want to know why most fitness-related New Year's resolutions fail even before February? Well, you've come to the right place. I'm going to share with you a fundamental secret to maintaining a fitness regime that most people overlook. So stick around to find out. Now, one of the largest missteps that people actually make when they start out on their fitness journey and they want to get that six-pack by summer is that they just bolt out the gate way too quickly. They start doing everything they can and eventually they end up burning out. In the early stages, there's an undeniable enthusiasm about transforming yourself. Your brain even produces dopamine with you just thinking about doing that exercise. But however, this can trick you into feeling motivated and content before the work actually even begins. So what am I talking about? Well, you probably all have been there if you have started a New Year's resolution or you've decided that you actually want to start working out, is that you look at what other people are doing and you see people are going 2 to 3 times to the gym every week and they're doing 1-hour sessions, or you go on YouTube and you have a look what a good workout is, and usually they are about 40 minutes to 1 hour, or there's some fitness guru telling you that you need to run on a treadmill for 30 minutes. And all of this is just the wrong way to start if you actually want to maintain your fitness journey. And really the key is that when you're starting out, it's not about what kind of exercise you do, whether it's calisthenics, weights, leg arm splits. You shouldn't even be thinking about taking protein powder or what supplement stack you need to take. All those things actually have very little effect and can actually be detrimental in the habit creation process. These things are great once you actually got that habit cemented and are things that you should focus on, but later down the road. When you are first starting out, the only thing you need to worry about is actually setting a habit. Because once you've actually set a habit, you don't actually end up arguing with yourself that day when you've stress at work or the kids are playing up whether you're going to go and do that exercise. Because it's a habit, you do it automatically. And that's sort of the point where we want to get to. And then we can build from there. This is where I come to the 6-week rule. So the goal should be, by 6 weeks, am I still doing the same amount of exercise as I was doing on week 1? And have I done it consistently every week? If you can get to that 6-week rule, you're pretty much halfway to forming a habit and things get drastically easier. So when you're thinking about starting an exercise habit, your whole focus needs to be shifted about making it as easy as possible for you to get to that 6-week mark. So let's talk about how do we simplify and make it as easy as possible for you to do this exercise so you can get to that 6-week mark. And there are practically 3 main barriers that stop you from performing this exercise. So number 1 is distance. If you have to commute to your gym or your workout spot, you're incredibly less likely to follow through when you're less inclined. Number 2 is the duration. If you know you've got a 50-minute to 1.5 hour gym workout ahead of you, it's going to be very, very difficult to actually get yourself to go to the gym and put yourself through that, especially if it's very unfamiliar to you, compared to a 10-minute gym session, which pretty much anybody can handle. And lastly, number 3 is enjoyment. And this might seem pretty obvious. You're more likely to do things that you enjoy than you hate. But a lot of people put exercise as something that cannot be enjoyed. And of course, if you're running on a treadmill in a gym staring at a blank wall, that is going to be torture. You can actually find exercises that you enjoy, and to such an extent that it doesn't actually feel like exercise. So what can we do to minimize these 3 barriers? So for number 1 is probably the key one here is we really want to shorten the duration that we do the exercise for. Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to form a habit here. We're not trying to get you fit and healthy in 6 weeks. So a good rule of thumb is 10 minutes of high intensity exercise or 40 minutes of low intensity exercise such as walking or yoga. So even if you are heading to the gym, get on any machine, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're pushing some weight, do a couple sets and then just leave. And yes, of course, that sounds ridiculous. Why would you go all the way to the gym just to do 1 set? But trust me, at this stage, we're not trying to transform you into an Olympic athlete. We're just trying to get you used to turning up, doing some exercise and leaving, getting you familiar with the environment. So number 2, you want to minimize the distance and the friction between you starting the exercise. So what do I mean by this? There's really 2 here. There's like 1 distance and 2 friction. Distance is pretty self-explanatory. If you have to drive really far to go to the gym or where you work out, you're a lot less likely inclined to do. A great way to get around this is if you've got a really close gym, no matter, even if it's worse or it's more expensive, it's definitely worth it for the habit creation. Or you can actually buy some weights yourself. And I'm not talking about getting a full gym setup here. Actually, all you need is 1 kettlebell, and you can practically do every single exercise you can do in the gym, in your garden, with 1 kettlebell. That's actually what I did last summer for 6 months. And I ended up working out every single day after work because it was so easy. You would come home from work, take off your clothes, get into the garden with a kettlebell in my underwear and just swing that baby around. And that sort of ease of exercise is super important. The second one is the sort of the friction. If you have to sort of do a lot of setup, if you have to pull the gym equipment out of the loft, or if your kettlebell's stuck in a cupboard somewhere, you're just less likely to do it. And the good thing is with a kettlebell or some home weights is you can actually put them in nice open spaces. So I wouldn't recommend storing them away. Put them on your table or put them in somewhere in plain sight, and it will actually act as a cue for you to go outside and exercise. And number 3 is choose activities that you genuinely enjoy. So for a lot of people, it is not going to be running on a treadmill or on an exercise bike in the gym. Doing cardio in the gym is a big no-no when you're starting out, and I would really recommend not to do it. Walking outside is way better for this habit creation process. But what most people enjoy actually is sport. So be it racket sports or team sports like football or rugby, these can be great ways of exercise while also getting that sort of social aspect and enjoyment out of it. And the benefit that actually also comes with these team sports is that there's sort of this social pressure and commitment pressure that when you commit to playing that game of tennis with your friend, it's a lot harder to cancel than just going to the gym. So in a way, it's actually a very good way to force yourself to commit to something. Personally for me, I found jiu-jitsu, which is a grappling martial art, which I completely fell in love with and now go 4 to 5 times per week. And the great thing about that is within an hour you can easily burn up north of 1,000 calories. And as I said before, if these sort of high intensity exercises and sports just not your cup of tea, or if you're really unfit, walking is just fine. Go for a 40-minute walk for sure. You have to do a little bit more than if you were doing high intensity, but this also brings with the added benefit that you can put in some headphones and listen to your favorite music so if you limit these 3 big barriers as much as possible, I guarantee you that by the 6-week mark, you will still be able to achieve the amount of exercise that you started out with. And if you haven't been, then the likelihood is that you really haven't minimized these enough and that you need to go back and have a look at it and have a look at these aspects and try and reduce them even more. But you've got to the 6-week mark. Now we're halfway there. The going to the gym shouldn't feel as hard. You should start feeling a lot more familiar and everything should be doing good. And this is the time where we can actually start increasing the level of exercise. This is where we can start talking about sort of leg arm day splits, where you can start exploring the different types of exercise and start increasing the time you spend in that high intensity cardio zone. And this is where you'll start to see a lot more results. However, it is worth mentioning that your habit isn't completely formed. It takes up to 3 months to fully form a habit, so you don't want to start jumping up way too quickly and then get burned out. And at the end of the day, life does happen. Sometimes you'll have a terrible day at work where you're stressed, you're exhausted, and the last thing you want to do is come home and exercise. But on these such days, my advice is just dial the exercise back to a bare minimum. Do 5 minutes, 1 rep, 10 minutes instead of your normal amount, as it is so important to reinforce the habit and not actually have a break in the cycle. So let's sum it all up. So step number 1 is to create a manageable goal that allows you to achieve consistency up until the 6-week mark. Number 2 is minimize the obstacles to the exercise. Consider the 3 big obstacles: distance, duration, and enjoyment. And then once you've start to establish this exercise routine, this is where you can start ramping it up and actually becoming that super athlete that you've always dreamed of becoming. Remember, it's all about consistent small steps. Now, if you like this video, do check me out on Twitter. There's a link in the description. I post short snippets of information all about fitness and lifestyle and how to live a long and happy life.